And we continue. The Dionysian Temperament. The minute you climb into that truck, the adrenaline starts pumping. If you want a thrill, there's no comparison, not even a jet plane, to climbing on a steel truck and going out there on the expressway. You'll swear you'll never be able to get out the other end of that thing without an accident. There's thousands of cars and thousands of trucks, and you're shifting like a maniac, and you're braking and accelerating, and the object is to try to move with the traffic and try to keep from running over all those crazy fools who are trying to get under your wheel. Studs Terkel from Working, page 209. These are the SPs, which is ISTP, ESTP, ISFP, and ESFP, differing from each other in important ways, but resembling each other in even more important ways. At bottom, the Dionysian SP must be free. He will not be tied or bound or confined or obligated to do as he wishes when he wishes. That's the ideal. To wait, to save, to store, to prepare, to live for tomorrow, that is not the way. For the SP Epicurus was right. Today must be enjoyed, for tomorrow never comes. Duty, power, and spirit are of secondary, if any, importance to the SP. Action's the thing, and to understand the SP, it is necessary to understand the kind of action he insists upon. Action must be its own end. It cannot serve a purpose or be instrumental in achieving a goal. Although the SP does not object when his deeds contribute to ends held by others, that cannot be his reason for doing what he does. He does things because he has the urge, the whim. SPs are in essence impulsive. They want to be impulsive. To be impulsive is to be really alive. SPs covet their impulses, enjoy feeling them well up within, and they love discharging them like setting off an explosion. SPs even feel guilty if they don't have impulses. At one time or another, we all feel these sudden urges to do something, but most of us ignore them, looking instead to more distant, more patient goals. We discipline this impulse to freedom in the name of duty, power, or spirit, while the SP feels only bound and confined. This is not to say the Dionysian SP does not acquire goals and ties, just like the rest of us. He does, of course, only they are fewer and more tentatively held. If the ties become too numerous or too binding, then the SP is likely to become restless and perhaps experience the urge to take off for somewhere else. The idea of action for itself can best be understood by comparing practice with compulsion. Practice, first of all, is what we all do to improve our skill and preparation for performance at work. Performance or work. It is not for keeps, not for real. We know it doesn't count, that it is mere rehearsal. SPs, however, do not wish to practice, since it is only preparation for action later on. SPs do not practice. They do. Indeed, the SP must do what he feels the urge to do. Sometimes this action can be excessive, going for many hours without pause, such excessive action being mistaken for discipline by observers of other temperaments. But this is not discipline, rather, it is action by compulsion, as if the SP is caught in its traction, feeling a necessity, as it were, to do his thing. Like the man who climbs a mountain because it's there, the SP is only inarticulately aware of the sovereignty he gives his impulses. He must do whatever his impulse dictates and continue the action as long as the urge compels. When the urge lets up, he no longer feels like racing, climbing, or whatever. More than other temperaments, the SP is subject to what Carl Bueller calls function lust, a hunger for action without fetter or constraint, an exploratory action without the necessity for rules or practice. The SP thrives on situations where the outcome is not known, where there is freedom to test the limits. Of all the styles, the SP works best in crisis. The deeper the crisis, the more apt he is to respond quickly and dramatically. If a situation with little variation occurs, the SP becomes disinterested. As the range of possibilities and emergencies increases, the vigor with which the SP takes on the task accelerates. In fact, when circumstances become too dull and routine, the SP has been known to create a crisis, just to liven things up a little. Man has 3 things that animal doesn't: symbols, gods, and tools. The Dionysian is usually not captured by the gods and is largely indifferent to the symbolic. But tools are his master. The tool is to use, and the SP cannot put it to use. The tool is to use, and the SP cannot not put it to use. He must drive the bulldozer, fly the plane, fire the gun, toot the horn, weld the scalpel, brush, or chisel. There is something about tools which strikes a chord in the character of SP, attracting him almost as if addictive. Somehow the tool becomes an extension of the self, augmenting, amplifying, and sharpening the effects of action, and this gives a greater kick to the discharge of impulse. More than action, however, the SP wants others to see him as being free to act, a free spirit, as it were. It is not so much that the SP takes pride in being capable or in having the power to do something. These are the prides of another style. Rather, the SP prides himself precisely and only on his freedom. He is not saving knowledge or accumulating power. He is spending life as freely as he can. Action cannot be saved for tomorrow, and each new day brings a need for excitement, adventure, risk, testing one's luck. Resources are to be expended, machinery is to be operated, people are to be enjoyed. The SP has a hunger for operation threading through all his behaviors, and beneath his activity, the need to be seen as free to operate. Cultural approval provides the male SP with a far greater opportunity to express his preferences for action than the female SP. Still looks clear. Perhaps the influence of the feminist movement will make this style of life acceptable for females. Also, nonetheless, current realities simply exclude the SP female from typical SP occupations, in spite of the fact that half of all SPs are women. True, a few women have entered the building trades. Many have infiltrated the military. Infiltrated, I like that. And some have succeeded as troubleshooters in business. but the action occupations involving precision, endurance, strength, boldness, and timing have mainly been the province of men and are seen as masculine occupations. The majority of women still enter the traditional 3 female occupations of nursing, teaching, and clerical work, none of which is likely to satisfy the SP's hunger for action. Dionysians frequently are described by friends as exciting, optimistic, cheerful, lighthearted, and full of fun. Socially, SPs tend to be charming and witty conversationalists, often having an inexhaustible repertoire of jokes and stories. Wherever they go, SPs, especially the extroverted SPs, lend an electricity to the environment and the people in that environment. The SP brings to work and to play a sense that something exciting is about to happen. The atmosphere takes on a glow, seems brighter, more colorful, charged with adventure. In fact, SPs can easily become bored with the status quo. They like to vary their work patterns each day. They are usually ready to take time out for entertainment, trying out new foods, new places to eat, and vacation spots. An SP is likely to enjoy randomness, varying the dinner hour, wanting to eat whenever the impulse strikes. This tends to be disconcerting to the more orderly personalities, the SJ, for example, and can lead to difficulty when an SP marries. Yet SPs do live life with a flourish, which others often envy and admire. Auntie Mame defies a disapproving world, urging her friend, at the end of Act 2, to take some risks. Yes, life is a banquet, and most poor sons of bitches are starving to death. Live! And her friend catches the spirit responding, yes, live, live, live. Lawrence and Lee from 1957. An SP can be only temporarily defeated. He has the ability to survive setbacks, which might leave other types permanently devastated. Easy come, easy go, he says. Jenny Churchill, Winston Churchill's extraordinary mother, was such a type. She lived with an intensity which is rare, even in SPs. Ralph Martin caught her style when he wrote of a low point in Jenny's life. All right, hang on, I gotta get a little drink here. All right. Ralph Martin wrote this. For Jenny, the year 1895 began bitter and bleak. After a lingering illness, her husband had died of syphilis, raving mad. Only weeks before, her lover, unwilling to wait any longer, had married. Her sons, Winston and Jack, both had problems which required her full attention. Physically and emotionally, she felt drained. So here was Jenny, with the man who had loved her most, now married to someone else. Little money, not even a home of her own. And yet, such was the inner resource and resilience of this woman that her life soon took on an excitement and vitality such as she had never dreamed of. As her friend, Lady Curzon, said in a letter to her, "You are the only person who lives on the crest of a wave." By Ralph G. Martin, Jenny, Signet, Volume 2, page 15 and 17. Life for an SP means having impulses and acting spontaneously on those impulses. Since an impulse, by definition, is short-lived, the SP must live in the immediate moment. For the SP to wait is psychological death. Delay effectively kills his impulse. To other types, this may not make much sense, and others find it hard to understand why a person wants to live impatiently and impulsively. But to an SP, a life of action which repudiates long-term goals objectives, or plans is life at its freest, at its most intense. Here's someone else writing something. I have no desire to have children, so why get married? Ladies, for the most part, want to get married and have children. Most have been conditioned that way. I can't handle it. Inside of me, I get a little crazy. I start feeling locked in if I have to be somewhere at a certain time. And then I worry if I'm not there, she'll worry. Man, the biggest burden I ever had was love. By Cheryl Benson. This Man is Madly in Love. Los Angeles Times, Part 3, Sunday, February 15th, 1976. Page 1, story of Joe Namath, football professional. The SP does not punctuate his experience with goal-dominated syntax. His language is operational and functional. Hence, he does not have to endure or put up with anything. No matter how tired, hungry, and painful an adventure may be, it is an adventure, not a commission. The SP does not think with a goal frame of reference, and thus the notion of endurance is irrelevant. Hardship is endured only if the behavior is seen as instrumental toward some end, some goal. But the SP's behavior is not subordinated to an end, because the behavior is its own end. A hole is to dig, a door is to open, a hall is to run in, a bell is to ring, a mountain is to climb. This urge to action can be expensive at times, as seen in the Los Angeles Times story about one of Elvis Presley's whims. Presley had parked his custom-made Cadillac near a car lot, and when he returned, he found a total stranger with her head in his car, looking it over longingly. Elvis asked the woman if she liked it, and then offered, "This one is mine, but I'll buy you one." He caught the stranger by the arm, took her to the nearby car lot, and told her to pick one. After she had selected a gold and white model, which listed for $11,500, Presley learned that it was the woman's birthday. So he handed her the keys to the car, wished her happy birthday, and told his aide to write a check so that the woman could buy some clothes to go with the car. That's from Los Angeles Times, 1975. Oddly, the SP seems to have endurance beyond that of other types. He seems able to put up with discomfort, deprivation, hunger, fatigue, pain, and show courage in a way other types do not. But this is because other types are goal-oriented, reluctant to exert themselves unless there is a reason. Thus, other types suffer hardship, discomfort, and fatigue as they work and shortly begin to wonder how much more they can stand. This is a fatal question and is self-defeating. In a sense, its own answer. But since the SP is not moving toward a goal, he does not experience his action as duration, as a distance to endure. Never questioning his capacity to do so, he simply continues, often beyond reasonable limits for other types. This penchant for acting on impulse contains a seeming paradox for SPs, living only for immediate action, become the world's great performing artists, the virtuosos of art, entertainment, and adventure, the great painters, instrumentalists, vocalists, dancers, sculptors, photographers, athletes, hunters, racers, gamblers, all need the skills which come only from excited concentration on an activity for long periods. No other type can mobilize what virtuosity takes, untold hours of continuous action. But how can this be in a style which is driven by impulse and which, as we have discussed, disdains rehearsal and commitment? Once caught up in his action hunger, the SP can persevere in that action for hour after hour, continuing long after other types would have abandoned the effort. And it is this impulsive stamina that makes virtuosity possible. The SP seems to be the sole possessor of perfection in action, and yet he never practices in the sense that others do. The NT, for example, seeks perfection, yet perfection evades him. The SP is oblivious to the pursuit of perfection, does not practice in order to achieve it, and yet achieves it. The NT knowingly and deliberately practices by the clock, by the book. The SP simply and spontaneously acts, endlessly, tirelessly, caught up and possessed by the act itself, having no end beyond the doing. Somehow caring about perfection and working for it only get in the way. The act in itself alone realizes perfection. Performers in the arts, for example, Nijinsky, Rubinstein, Heifetz, Casals, and Callas, are apt to be SPs, but also the racer, the surfer, the soldier of fortune, the magician, the card sharp, even the gunslinger of the Old West. In fact, the gunslinger was just as much a virtuoso as the great performing artist, and he was similarly idealized. The gunslinger could draw his long-barreled Colt 45, cock it, aim it, and fire it, hitting unbelievably small moving targets. Without even putting the gun up in front of his eyes, he was able to perform this feat in less than 1/5 of a second, so swiftly that the motion of his hand could not be seen. The fast draw of the gunslinger is just as incredible as the flying movements of the violinist's fingers or the gravity-defying leaps of a prima ballerina. In a sense, the SP does not work, for work implies production, completion, and accomplishment. The SP has no such desire for closure, completion, and finishing. He is process-oriented. What ensues from his action is mere product, mere outcome, mere result, and is incidental. Thus, the SP's work is essentially play. He is no Sisyphus, despairing when his rock rolls down the mountainside each night after his day's toil of pushing it up. The SP's joy is in the act of pushing the rock, not caring that no permanent edifice remains as a monument to his efforts. The SP gravitates towards jobs where action is involved, not only the performing arts, but construction work, jobs where heavy machinery is employed, the building operations for dams and skyscrapers, for freeways and mines, for leveling forests in a wilderness, operations for putting human force against the forces of nature, such as working the oil fields and logging the giant redwoods, mercenary soldiering, loading freight at docks, promoting enterprises, driving ambulance and racing cars, motorcycles, aircraft. The statesman, negotiator, the entrepreneur who enjoys and succeeds in pulling business out of the red, the bellhop, the bartender, the porter, the hairstylist, the model, detective, police, rescue squads, magicians, professional athletes, ombudsmen are all in occupations which demand action and freedom to respond to the demands of the moment. All work against pressures and all usually do their best in crisis situations. For example, Arthur Haley describes the extraordinary skills and the non-reflective, danger-courting behavior of the SP in the following scene from Airport. "Mister, there's spilled gasoline around here. You'd better get that cigar out." Patrioni ignored the instruction, as he ignored almost all smoking regulations. He waved his cigar toward the overturned tractor-trailer. What's more, son, you'd be wasting everybody's time, including mine and yours, trying to get that hunk of junk right side up tonight. You have to drag it clear so traffic can move, and to do that you need 2 more tow trucks. 1 on this side to push, 2 over there to pull. He began moving around using his electric lantern to inspect the big articulated vehicle from various angles. As always, when considering a problem, he was totally absorbed. He waved the cigar once more. The 2 trucks together all hitch onto 3 points. They'll pull the cab first and faster. That'll overcome the jackknifing. The other truck... Hold it, the state trooper said. He called across to one of the other officers. Hank, there's a guy here. Sounds like he knows what he's talking about. From Arthur Haley Airport, Batam Books, Inc., page 43, 1968. The SP of all the types is most likely to answer the call to wonder, and he can sever social ties more easily than can others. Even though he may be aware of the distress his behavior causes those close to him, the SP can abruptly abandon either an activity or a pattern of living, walking away without a backward glance. The paintbrush lies where it is dropped. Responsibilities are abandoned as if they never existed. Although the SP himself created these ties, now he sees them as binding and a burden. At midlife particularly, the SP's need for freedom may be so intense that he becomes unusually restless. Gauguin, in his early 40s, turned away from his home and sailed off to Tahiti, where he produced unforgettable masterpieces. But no doubt he left broken trust behind. Yet in the SP's paradoxical way, he is also the most fiercely fraternal of all the styles. He lives esprit de corps, is loyal to his brothers, and defends his group against all attacks. This can be observed, for example, in the Marines or in a fraternal order like the Elks. The SP can miss romantic nuances, which may be apparent and precious to other types. Although the SP is the master of the grand gesture, such as a dozen of yellow roses, the extravagant mink coat, the 3-carat diamond ring, he can forget a promised telephone call or neglect a small word of affection. The SP uses whatever resources may be available and is more than willing to share with others. He tends to live life at the level of a gourmet feast, if that is, he is not short of funds, which surely is only temporarily. Even in times of short supply, however, his egalitarianism may show. He is the most likely of the types to think in terms of share and share alike, and to make do with what we have. What is his is yours, and what is yours his. To the SP, everything is negotiable in a crisis. An SP will go along with rules and regulations obediently for long periods. Then a crisis occurs or an impulse strikes, and an apparently different personality surfaces. New situations demand new actions, and earlier commitments may have to be jettisoned, with regret perhaps, but still abandoned. Today is today, and yesterday's arrangements must give way in the face of more urgent demands. The SP's need to live more fully in the present than any other style sometimes irritates others who expect to maintain the same level of intensity. Although friends enjoy the SP's generosity and good cheer, they sometimes report that they felt they knew their SP friends very well at first meeting and never any better years later. Indeed, the style is often subject to denigration. People become fascinated and charmed by the SP's way of life, then disappointed when the SP does not live up to the projections other types place on him. SPs do not get very excited about complex problems of motivation. For them, whatever is. That is sufficient for the SP to know what to think, what to do, and what to believe. As super realists, they do not require that their actions be governed by established policy, rules, or natural laws, as do other styles. Because the SP often leaps before looking, he is more subject to accidents than other temperaments. He injures himself through inattention to possible sources of defeat or accident, his optimism living on his abiding sense of luck. And that is, we are on page 39. That has been the Dionysian Temperament. We're reading from the book Please Understand Me, Character and Temperament Types by David Kiersey and Marilyn Bates. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you.